You lucky fillies and gentle colts, 2 episodes in 1 day. This is Tuesday, August 31st, 2011, and this is Vos de Sueños After Dark. Welcome back. This is part 2 of Chapter 1, Unexpected Inheritance of the Shadow Over Hoofsmouth by Lurks No More. The big box turned out to be a fairly large crate, sturdily made from oddly grayish colored wood. A slightly tattered address label, covered in corrections in red pen, suggested that its route to Ponyville had been quite circuitous. There was a faint smell of salt and seaweed coming from it, not exactly unpleasant, but not quite pleasant either. Sitting on top of a tarp in the middle of Rarity's almost obsessively neat tailor's workshop, it looked distinctly out of place. "So, where did your grandmother used to live, Rarity?" Twilight asked her fellow unicorn, while Pinkie, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash struggled to pry the tightly nailed lid open with crowbars. "A place called Hoofsmouth, on the south coast," Rarity replied. "I've never been there, and Mother never spoke much about it. I gathered it's a small coastal town, scarcely the size of Ponyville, and rather run down." Twilight frowned. She knew she'd heard or read the name of Hoofsmouth somewhere, but where? The tortured groan of rusted nails finally giving up the fight broke her train of thought, and she trotted over with Rarity to see what the crate contained. The source of the salty smell became clear as soon as Applejack lifted the lid aside. The crate had been filled with tightly packed, withered green-gray seaweed. "Aw, this doesn't look very interesting," Pinkie said with an air of disappointment. "That's just the packaging stuff, Pinkie," Applejack said patiently, pushing her hooves into the crate and lifting out an armful of seaweed. "Hey, Rarity, here's a couple of what looks like jewelry boxes in here." "Yes, I do believe I can sense gems in there," Rarity said, levitating the boxes out. They were pieces of art on their own, made from some kind of fine-grained, exotic wood and covered with complex, abstracted carvings of fish and other stranger sea creatures. "Let's see. Oh my!" Every pony oohed and awed as they watched Rarity open the boxes one after another. They were beautifully carved coral ankle bands, a mane net made from fine gold wire with set blue-green stones, a long and beautiful pearl necklace, a set of odd-looking dress horseshoes made from some greenish-black stone with flecked gold, and more. "Oh my," Fluttershy said, examining the coiled pearls closely. "These are very beautiful. Your grandmother must have been very rich, Rarity." Twilight had to agree. Ordinary gemstones weren't expensive in Equestria, but the rarer ones, such as those pearls, could fetch a handsome price. And that was before taking into account the exotic craftsmanship of the jewelry. It didn't remind her of anything she'd seen in the museums of Canterlot, or even the strange zebrakin antiques Zecora had occasionally shown her. Rainbow Dash had quickly become bored with the jewelry and was nosing around in the crate. "Hey, I think there's something more in here," she said, reaching in. "It's not a box, though." She lifted out a burlap bag and turned it upside down on the floor. A note flitted out, followed by a shining tiara that caught every pony's attention. "Dash, you should be more careful," Rarity chided her friend, levitating the tiara over to her. Oh my." The jewelry they had already seen had been beautiful and exotic, but compared to the tiara, those were just cheap, gaudy dross. The tiara, made in a single piece from mother of pearl, combined the simple elegance of its overall lines with the baroque complexities of the aquatic carvings and inlays of strange greenish gold that covered its every inch. Its 3 strangely barbed points reminded Twilight of the crown her mentor always wore, yet she had the uncanny feeling that the 2 pieces couldn't have been more different. Applejack was the first to speak. "That's pretty," she said in an uncomfortable tone of voice. "Pretty?" Rarity gasped. "It's the most wonderful, most beautiful, and exquisite piece of jewelry I have ever seen in all my life, and the best you can call it is pretty? It's amazing, it's stunning, it's absolutely divine." With a haughty little sniff, she placed the tiara on her head, the little notch in its rim fitting perfectly against the base of her horn. "Fluttershy, I know I can trust your taste. How do I look, darling?" she asked eagerly. The yellow Pegasus cringed. I'm not sure." Tell me! Rarity whined, stomping her hooves. Fluttershy drew in a deep breath and began to speak. "It's gorgeous, and it fits your head perfectly, and all those carvings of squids and trilobites and anglerfish and krakens are wonderfully realistic, and the mother of pearl goes really well with your mane, but, I don't like it. There was a brief silence as Rarity stared at Fluttershy. Then she turned to look at the rest of her friends, an expectant look on her face. It's really pretty, but yeah, Fluttershy's right, Dash said, scrunching her nose like she smelled something unpleasant. I don't like it either. It looks weird. Not the good kind of weird like Pinky's jokes, either. The pink pony nodded with a mow of distaste on her muzzle. That's the most foreboding thingy I've ever seen in my life, she said. It gives me the creeps. It gives me the feeling of my Pinkie Pie sense should be going off right now, but it isn't, and that's just eerie. Twilight cleared her throat. I hate to say this, Rarity, but I think they're right. It's an unquestionably wonderful artifact, but it doesn't look quite right to me. Like it wasn't made by ponies, or not intended for a pony to wear. For a moment, Rarity looked like she was about to shout at her friends and tell them to get out of her home. Then her shoulders slumped, and with a sigh, she levitated the tiara off of her head. Do you really think so? It seems so lovely to me. The headpiece rotated slowly before her face as the unicorn drank in its strange beauty. Reluctantly, she placed it on the table and sighed again. What kind of name is Narcreus? Rainbow Dash asked suddenly. She'd picked up the note that had slipped out of the bag and was now studying it. Give me that! Rarity said, snatching the slip of paper out of Dash's hooves with her magic. My dear cousin Rarity, she read aloud. This tiara belonged to our grandmother, Ocean Pearl, and although it wasn't mentioned in her will, I cannot think of anyone who would have a better claim to it and what it represents than you. Keep it safe and keep it hidden. Above all, do not let anyone from the Esoteric Order of Poseidon find out about it. Especially not my sister Narcreus. She is a white unicorn with a green mane and the mark of a wavy-bladed knife. I apologize for being cryptic, but everything will be made clear to you eventually. Your cousin, Lustrous Pearl. She put the note down, looking uncertain. I didn't even know I had cousins on that side of the family, although it makes sense that Auntie Madripoor would have children. Eerie, Pinkie Pie repeated with a dark expression. You can say that again, Sugar Cube, Applejack said. Don't like what that sounds like, not at all. I've seen enough trouble coming from people arguing over inheritances in my own family, and it seems to me like this cousin of yours just pulled you into a fight with her sister. Rarity snorted and turned to look at the tiara again. I don't understand what she talks about my claim to this, or it represents something. And what on Equestria is this Esoteric Order of Poseidon? Do you know anything about it, Twilight? The purple unicorn shook her head. I don't recognize that, Rarity. There are some strange little societies, even outright cults out there in Equestria. Since your grandmother was a unicorn, and most likely so are your cousins, I would guess it's some kind of magical order. I can try to research it for you if you want. Her expression turned uncomfortable. And, if you don't mind, I would like to look more closely at that tiara. I've seen magical items before in Canterlot, and some of them can be dangerous. Rarity stiffened, and her tail twitched in an agitated manner. Darling, you know I absolutely defer to your greater expertise when it comes to matters of magic, but I do know jewelry, she said, her tone supercilious all of a sudden. Obviously, this is the work of a crafts magician of superlative skill and vision, but if you're insinuating that my grandmother would have left me a cursed tiara, I... Simmer down, Sally, Applejack interrupted. Twilight ain't saying anything like that, are you, Twi? She's just curious and worried like we all are. There's something uncanny about that thing, pretty as it is. Besides, this cousin of yours, who you've never heard of before, is telling the truth. It was she who sent this to you and not your grandma. The white unicorn did not reply, but her pose relaxed a little. Fluttershy, who had been staying silent, took the opportunity to comfort her friend, carefully spreading her wing over Rarity's withers. Please say yes, Rarity. I know how much you like jewelry, but this isn't like you at all. I'd feel so much better if I could be sure there's nothing bad about your inheritance. Rarity took a deep breath and nodded. I'm sorry, Twilight, she said, giving the other unicorn an apologetic smile as she turned to face her. I think you're making a bit too much fuss over this, but that doesn't exactly excuse my rudeness. Seizing the burlap bag with her magic, she slipped the pearlescent tiara in and floated it over to Spike, who grabbed it possessively against his chest. Please, take your time studying this. I'm going to have a lovely time planning outfits for the rest of these jewels. It was late in the night. The moon had already set behind the Rock Candy Mountains in the west, and there was not yet any hint of the coming morning on the eastern sky. The town of Ponyville was dark and silent beneath the cold, distant stars. Two ponies covered with dark hooded cloaks were moving through the dark streets. If any pony had been watching, they would have been disturbed by the furtive way the two strangers crept through the town towards the carousel boutique. Slyly, they tried first the front door, and then the windows. Neither budged. Rarity, with the amount of jewels and expensive clothes she kept at her store, was one of the few ponies who regularly locked her home at night. They did not seem surprised by this. The taller one produced a small bottle from her cloak and shook it in her mouth. The liquid inside the bottle began to glow with a faint, sickly green light. Her burly companion brought forth a crowbar and inserted it into the crack in the window frame. The big pony worked slowly and silently, pausing after every creak and crack. Eventually, there came the faint sound of tearing metal, and the window slid open. The burglar spat out his crowbar and helped his companion climb inside. A moment later, the front door opened, and he slipped inside as well. The two burglars looked around, huddling close to one another, as if disturbed by the blankly staring faces of the ponykins. One of the wooden ponies was standing in the middle of the room, bedecked with the strange jewelry and a dark dress saddle. The stallion looked like he was about to bow to the ponykin, but a hoof nudge from his companion stopped him. Then they began to search the store, opening closets and pulling rolls of fabric out, emptying drawers onto the floor and poking through the contents with their hooves. Neither of them noticed the small shadow on top of the cupboard that watched their actions with green, glowing eyes and mounting fury. With a loud yowl and hiss, Opalescence jumped down onto the burly burglar, digging her claws into his flanks through the dark cloak he wore. He let out a hoarse cry of pain and shock and bucked, trying to toss the snarling, clawing cat off of him. Instead, he knocked one of the ponykins over. It hit the next one, toppling that one over as well. Realizing that their mission was a failure, the smaller pony lashed out with a hoof, knocking Opal off. This resulting in another crash and even louder yells from the angry cat. "Come on, we mustn't be caught," she said in a curiously thick voice as she saw lights coming on in the nearer houses, and heard Rarity's hurried hoofsteps from upstairs. Ignoring the blood trickling from the stallion's flanks and the triangular scrape torn from his cloak, they galloped out, leaving behind a store in chaos and a bottle filled with glowing green algae. Alright, that was Chapter 1 of the Shadow Over Hoofsmouth by Lurks No More. Join me next time. Cheers.